Hey everyone, today we're going to be talking about this unique expanded deck trying to get use out of the third Unown from Lost Thunder. Now, if you have any knowledge about the expanded format, you know that there are two Unowns from Lost Thunder, the Hand Unown and the Damage Unown. And what these Unowns do, there's actually three total, but the two from Lost Thunder, if you have like 35 cards in hand, I believe, you get to just choose to win the game if it's active. If you have like 66 damage counters on your benched Pokemon, you get to choose to win the game. And the problem with these cards is that they were extremely easy to accomplish. Unown Hand even became a standard rogue deck at one point with things like Salazzle and Scoop Up Net, allowing that to be very possible, along with Fire Crystal. But in Expanded, there is one Unown still legal. The other two have been banned, and this is Unown Missing. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is your active and your opponent has 12 or more supporter cards in the Lost Zone, you may use this ability and win the game. The attack's pointless, HP doesn't matter other than searchability, it's just for missing. And obviously this is a win con. You really don't see that many win con-esque cards. The only ones that come to mind are these three Unowns, the Slowbro from Breakpoint, and then Lost World back of old, but obviously Lost World would be a bit too good nowadays. So we're trying to facilitate this 12 supporter cards from our opponent's deck into the Lost Zone. And the main reason this card is bad simply is that your opponent almost has to play into it, and they have to have a deck that plays 12 supporters. One of the biggest issues about this card in Expanded is that instead of being reliant on your own board, it's reliant on your opponent's board. And there's a lot of decks, for instance, if you look at the recent lists in like Play.Limitless TCG, some of the tournament lists, something like an ADP Palkia might only play 5 supporter cards, and winning becomes actually impossible. I mean, you could potentially mill them out, best case scenario, but winning just becomes impossible in a lot of matchups because they just don't play those 12 supporter cards. So to get this to work, you really do have to kind of put yourself into a mindset of, you know, what if? You know, if my opponent is playing 12 or more supporter cards, think low ladder expanded decks where it's not too dynamic, you can win with this. And that's what we're trying to go for here. This deck is in no means good at all. Oh, shout out to Unown G, by the way. My man right there. Unknown Guard. But you kind of just have to put yourself into that fallacy and just pretend that you're playing against a deck that has 12 or more. And you do have to kind of just use this on low ladder expanded and run into people who are bad at the game, realistically, who just play a bunch of supporters. Because of versus Seeker and expanded, decks just really don't play high supporter counts unless they're Lusamine built. And the Lusamine decks item lock you, so it's extremely hard to win against those as well. But today we're going to be talking about this deck, how I created it, and you know, I've succeeded with it before. I think it's just a fun thing. You get the little victory screen with the Unowns, which is incredibly unique that they added that. I do enjoy that quite a bit. So, yeah, let's get into the deck. We have 4 copies of Zorua here. We are going with the Zoroark Evolving Skies box-type engine. As I explained in my Malamar video as well, you could build a deck with that, with the Zoroark engine, because it just makes your deck so much more versatile, and a lot of times sets up a lot easier, because you're able to get Cinccinos and stuff into play quite easy. If you want to use a different draw engine, such as like B-Barrel, that's perfectly acceptable as well. In this deck, though, we actually do want to draw our entire deck, get rid of cards that are not good, and then we go do 0 cards in deck, and I'll talk about that in a bit. We play the Zorua because that's 70 HP. We do play Brigette in here to search it out. If you want to play Elm's Lecture and play the one with 60 HP, that's perfectly fine. You're just not really using the Paralyzing Gaze in this deck in specific, so I went with the 70 HP one. Like I said, Elm's Lecture with 60 HP also works. 4 copies of Zoroark from Evolving Skies with its Phantom Transformation. You may choose a Stage 1 from your discard pile, discard the Zoroark from play, and replace it with a Stage 1. And you're about to see we have a bevy of Stage 1 to choose from to help set up our combo. Also a Stage 2 to help set up our combo. So we're going to go over those as we get to those. How we're going to get those supporters into the Lost Zone is with Girafarig from Lost Thunder with its Get Lost attack. Put 2 cards from your opponent's discard pile into the Lost Zone. One of the best attacks in all of Expanded. Every control deck almost plays this if it's a discarding-based deck that's not just, you know, hyper-aggressive or energy denial. It just gives you a lot more options, especially if you're very fluid, and you can get to the Girafarig very easily. With this deck, obviously, you have to use the attack probably 5 or 6 times. It's very difficult. It is possible, though. I have done it. can confirm it's done. It's very difficult, though. Obviously, getting supporters into the Lost Zone isn't the easiest thing in the world. We're just going to try to make it happen, though, with Get Lost. It's a fun attack. Occasionally, you can get rid of other things, too, if your opponent doesn't have 2 supporters in the Lost Zone, but you still need to use the attack. I've gotten rid of things that my opponent needs, like, energy and stuff they want to recover, so potentially could be good. Second attack's useless. 90 HP is important. 1 retreat's also important, and the attack costing 1 colorless is also great. We have 1 copy of Bunnelby here. This is a recent addition. I just think every control deck has to have 1 Bunnelby. You burrow to discard the top card of your opponent's deck, and Rototiller, shuffle a card from your pile into your deck. But the catch is that can attack twice. You can do 2 burrows, 2 Rototillers, or 1 of each on your turn. This helps you recover your Life Dew, your Counter Catcher. You can potentially just chain hammers if you're in a really advantageous spot with 0 cards in deck. You can just chain your hammers, and that's very effective. Bunnelby especially works with the 0 cards in deck strategy, so that's why I added him. I cut a Minccino for it, because I don't think you need 2 Minccino, I just had it. So that's why we're running Bunnelby. It's a great card. You can potentially just also discard the top cards of your opponent's deck, and if you hit a supporter card, you're in business, you know? You can get lost it in another turn. We have 1 copy of the Call Family Cinccino, or Minccino. This is by far the best. Search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon, put them onto your bench. 60 HP is cool. Could, again, play Elm's Lecture to search it out. I just personally prefer this. And then Pound, obviously, is bad. So don't use Pound, just use Call for Family. We evolve this into Cinccino with the Make Do. Discard a card from your hand, draw 2. You can see we're not playing Execute in this deck. So you are actually discarding raw resources when you're using this. You're going to discard mainly supporter cards and item cards you don't need, and as well as the Pokemon you need. The reason we run Cinccino over something like B-Barrel in this deck in specific is because it discards our stage 1s into the discard pile. And they're going to feel enough of your draws with Make Do that I really don't feel bad about not playing Execute in this deck. You could very well play it, I just don't think it's needed. It does also have an attack. It's mainly not useful, though. You just use it because you can search for 90 HP. I'd always point this out, though. The attack is useful. 1 colorless, energy assist 40, attach a basic energy. I've used it before to, like, take a KO. Use it in control decks. I've used it to, like, take a KO on a Bunnelby in the Mad Party deck. Because sometimes you just really have a card prize that you can't get and you need. So you can use the energy assist, hopefully get that card, and power up an energy on your bench for your next control move. Obviously, we have the unknowns. I'm not going to cover that again, but we do have Suicune-GX. When Lost Origin comes out, which is coming out on the date of this recording, you can just swap this for Pidgeot V. It's just a better card because it has 1 retreat. We use this for its Phantom Winds. If it's on your bench, you may shuffle it and all cards attached to it into your deck. Pidgeot V has the same thing on it. These attacks are absolutely useless. You can use them because you do actually play 3 water. I have never used these attacks. I don't think you ever will use these attacks. They are terrible. Ignore them. So now, getting to our Stage 1 tools. We have 1 copy of Slowking here from Lost Thunder. You're not using the Psychic attack, you are using it for the Memory Melt. Look at your opponent's hand and put a card you find there into the Lost Zone. So if your opponent has a smaller hand size, you're going to use this primarily. It allows you to just mine supporters from your opponent's hand that they've been holding on to. Obviously, your opponent can only play 1 supporter per turn. So if they're not playing those supporters, or they're trying to play around Get Lost by not playing those supporters, you can Memory Melt those supporters away. We also play 1 copy of Persian here from Team Up. If your opponent gets a really big hand, this card is incredible. Wish it had 90 HP, though. Use it for the Make 'em Pay attack. If your opponent has 4 more cards in hand, they reveal their hand, and then you get to choose whichever cards you'd like to discard until your opponent has exactly 4 cards left. I've only won 2 games with this deck out of, like, 10 I've played. Like I said, the deck is terrible and just loses against most decks because I don't play 12 supporters. But in the games that I won, Make 'em Pay was a huge factor because my opponent would draw a large hand, and then I would Make 'em Pay and discard like 5 or 6 supporters from that hand. This card's great. I would not play the deck without it. 1 copy of Floatzel here, coming in from Brilliant Stars. Use this for its Floatify attack. For 1 water, you put up to 2 items from your discard pile into your hand. This is great for recovering your Counter Catcher, your Crushing Hammer, your Battle Compressor if you need to use it again. Obviously, Verse Seekers are always good. Life Dew is incredibly important. Obviously, getting back 2 items is just great. Save Life from Junk Hunt is obviously banned and expanded due to that. We're mainly going to be getting back, Crushing Hammer, Counter Catcher, and Life Dew. Those are like the main ones, and then Rescue Stretcher as well. Forgot about that. Crushing Hammer is good because if you can just chain these over and over again, you can just remove your opponent's energy And this is kind of an energy denial deck on the side because you do need to slow your opponent down enough to where they're not playing that many cards per turn or attacking very often. So we have one copy of the Dottler here from Sword and Shield. This one you use because it has Reflect. During your opponent's next turn, this Pokemon takes 40 less from attack. So if you do get stuck active, it can at least protect itself. I forget which other Dottlers we have. There might be a better option, but I don't remember there being. Yeah, there's this one. And the reason you don't use this one is because it's Psychic, so it can't use its attack. So use this one because you can use Reflect. Great artwork as well. We also played the Orbeetle, that's why we're playing the Dottler. And it is obviously a Stage 2, so you have to have the Stage 1 out for a turn with Zoroark. But we use this for the Bug's Radar ability. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck and put them back in any order. Obviously, this is both a control strategy because you're slowing down your opponent and choosing what they draw, but it also plays perfectly into your deck's playstyle. And I'm just going to skip a few cards and we're going to talk about it. We played 2 copies of the Mountain Pass Trumbeak from Lost Thunder. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in your hand, you may reveal it. Look at the top card of your opponent's deck and then put that card into the Lost Zone if it's a supporter. If it's not a supporter, put it back. These Trumbeaks are extremely risky. I'd love to just run 4 and be like, oh, I'm just going to hit 4 supporters. But realistically, you don't get the chance to do that in my experience playing this deck. You play 2 because in combination with Orbeetle disrupting your opponent's deck and you're removing your opponent's energy, you do sometimes get the chance to wipe out a supporter and put your opponent into a dead draw for next turn. When you get the chance to do that, you will take that with Trumbeak. So that's why it's here. You potentially want to reduce the amount of attacks you have to use with the Girafarig by 1 by playing 2 Trumbeaks. Or sometimes, 1 if you just get a supporter down and they had to use 6 attacks with get lost if that wasn't ideal. I think that it really makes the deck go, though. You need to kind of stop your opponent from playing with Crushing Hammer and Bug's Radar and Memory Melt. You kind of just need to slow your opponent down from playing, otherwise they'll just bowl through this deck because it's really not a deck meant for taking hits. We do have Banette here from Roaring Skies. This is one of my favorite cards to put in Zoroark toolboxes. With its tool concealment ability, each Pokemon tool in play has no effect. What this means is that if you put Banette into play, you can go choose something on your opponent's side of the field, something like just thinking of heavy Pokemon. There's not that many heavy Pokemon in Expanded, obviously. Something like with a 2 retreat cost. Just imagine a Pokemon with a 2 retreat cost. A Mimikyu Gengar, for instance. Let me just bring that up for reference. So this has 2 retreat cost, obviously. And after the first couple turns of the game, its Horror House GX is obviously very useless. I don't think you're going to win against Shadow Rider deck, just clarifying. I'm just using this as an example. So what you can do is bring it up to the active, turn off your opponent tool cards, meaning that their float stones are no longer providing them pivots, and then you can get to work using your Memory Melt, your Make 'em Pay, your Floatify, and your Get Lost. That's kind of the strategy with this deck. You just kind of want to buy yourself some time by trapping things active. You only play 2 tool cards. You do have to be careful so that your life dew does not get ruined by this. So it's only used when you need to pull off a trap, use it in a specific scenario, and then you could even play something like a Scoop Up Net in here just to get it out of play should the occasion arise. I haven't found that problem, though. You usually use this to just win your end game. Use it at the very, very end after you've already used your life dew 1 or 2 times. So it's used for that occasion. Obviously, if there's a card that just turned off your opponent's Pokemon tools, you'd play it, but there's not. So, other than you could play potentially the tool card that you attach to your active and that does that. It's just much less searchable though than Banette, and you can't recover it with Zoroark, so Banette's good. Tool Jammer, maybe. 1 copy of Altaria here. Prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon V and GX. Use this to stall if you need some time to set up your board. A lot of times it's great to just throw up an Altaria and stall here. And I could see that being a just perfectly valid play. One thing I did actually omit in this deck, you'll notice, is a Ditto Prism Star. Ditto Prism Star you could very well put in here. I just started it and it felt really bad. All the basics in this deck besides Unown and Suicune feel pretty good to start. I just didn't want more than half of my basics to be bad starters. You don't mind starting Bunnelby or Minccino or Zorua, but it is pretty bad if you end up starting a Ditto Prism Star, so I just removed it from the deck. You could put it back in though. That's up to you. 1 copy of Jirachi-EX here with Stellar Guidance. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may search your deck for a supporter, reveal it, put it into your hand. The attack's useless. 90 HP is important though because it's level ball searchable. Use this to search out your supporters to set up your board. The supporters are probably not fully correct. Again, I play Mars in here. It's a bias thing. If you want to play a different card, it's very welcome. If you want to play Peonia over Gladion, it's actually, Peonia is quite good here. I did build this deck before the Chilling Rain format, and I just updated it with the Zoroark box when Evolving Skies came out. So that's what we're working with. We have 2 copies of Professor Juniper here. Discard your hand and draw 7 cards. It's the best, most aggressive draw supporter in Expanded. And obviously, if you can get yourself to a situation where you've drawn your entire deck and you're just phantom winning, that's a pretty good spot to be in, and you kind of like that. 1 copy of Mars. Draw 2, discard a random card from your opponent's hand. Again, it's not great. I think there's probably a better option here, like N. So if you want to put N or Marnie in here, I think it'd probably be better. When I was playing this deck originally, I just wanted Mars in here as a 4 of, but it just wasn't good. This is kind of just a leftover of that. So if you want to place it with N, I'd probably do that in hindsight. This is a list from a couple months ago, though, so you know, I haven't played with it in a little bit. It's just bringing its attention back because of Pidgeot V, so I kind of thought of it again. We have 1 copy of Brigette. Search your deck for 3 basic Pokemon. You're not searching EXs with it. Put them onto your bench. You play it because it's Jirachi searchable to just get all of your basics out. Again, you can play, you know, Scoop Up Net to get Jirachi out of play if you want, and get your Banette out of play if you want. I just use it because you can use Brigette for Zorua, Minccino, Zora, Bunnelby. Those are the only basics you're really getting out. If you're winning the game, obviously you can put Unknown, but you really don't need that. 1 copy of Gladion. Look your face down prize cards. Pull one of them into your hand, then shuffle Gladion into the prizes. Again, Peonia works pretty well here if you want to play that as well. But I just prefer Gladion, so Gladion it is. Usually only need like 1 or 2 cards from the prizes anyway, so Gladion gets you that. If you want to play a 2nd copy of Gladion, that's perfectly understandable as well. 1 copy of Guzma. Switch when your opponent's bench with their active, and then you switch. So use this for trapping plays. You do play a Counter Catcher as well, but obviously Counter Catcher isn't versus Seekerable, so you play Guzma because you can just gust up something on the bench and then switch into something you want. Potentially, if you get something trapped in the active, you see I don't play any Floatstone. It's because Guzma really just gives you the out to move whatever you want. And potentially, you're going to have the heavy Pokemon in the active anyway, or the heavy Pokemon aren't going to be on your field. So, Guzma is good. 1 copy of Clara. Put up to 2 Pokemon and up to 2 basic energy from your spout into your hand. Use this because I use this in all my Zoroark decks, to be honest. Just because the Zoroarks are so hard to recover. When you're using Zoroarks over and over, you just discard so many Pokemon from play. It almost feels like you're KOing your own Pokemon in a way. So I just want to get those Zoroarks back really efficiently, and Clara is the best way to do that. You could play Broxgrat, I just don't think Broxgrat's good. Team Flare Grunt, discard an energy attached to your opponent's active. Good energy denial. You can use it with Verse Seeker just so you can have an emergency energy removal. With Crushing Hammer, it's pretty good. 1 copy of Teammates. If your Pokemon was knocked out, search your deck for 2 cards. Just general good consistency. You're going to be knocked out quite a bit, so this card will be very live. You could potentially play Rosa in this deck. I would not play Raihan, but Rosa could also be good. It's really up to you. Sorry. Voice is going bad. 4 copies of Level Wall. Search deck for 90 HP or less Pokemon. Searches out your Minccino, Cinccino, Zoruas, sadly not Zoroarks, Girafarig, Bunnelby, Unown, Dottler, Banette, Jirachi, most importantly, and Trumbeak. Could play Quick Ball. You don't need to play Quick Ball. Level Ball searches everything anyway. All besides Suicune, but you're not searching out Suicune ever. 4 copies of Ultra Ball. Discard 2 cards from your hand. You can't discard 2 cards, you can't play it. Search deck for Pokemon. So you just use this. It goes again with your discard synergy, because you're obviously discarding Pokemon from your hand anyway, and it searches whatever Pokemon you like. You could play Evo Incense. I think Ultra Ball's better here, because you have discard and synergy. I like Evo Incense a lot more than Ultra Ball, to be honest, but Ultra Ball's better here, so we play Ultra Ball. 1 copy of Battle Comp. Search deck for 3 cards and discard them. You use this early game to get a supporter into the discard pile for Reverse Seeker, or get your Stage 1s into the discard pile. If you know you're not going to need a Pokemon for like the entire game, might as well throw it out into the discard pile, right? 1 copy of Counter Catcher. If you have more prizes than your opponent, switch one of your opponent's bench with their active. Use this trap. It's really good with Floatify because you can just recover it into hand. So a lot of turns you'll go like Counter Catcher, Floatify for Counter Catcher, and like, you know, Crushing Hammer, Rescue Stretcher versus Seeker kind of card. That's probably the best way to do it. Yeah, Floatify is good. Counter Catcher is good. 4 copies of Crushing Hammer. Flip a coin if it has discard energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon. Just good energy denial. You're going to chain this with Floatify. Some games you don't even need to chain it if they're playing low cost energy. You just want to basically clear your opponent's field of energy at all times, because the deck really can't deal with people attacking them. That's why it plays the Altaria. That's why it plays a lot of energy denial. You could play more supporter energy denial like Flare Grunt, but you want to be playing your supporters to draw cards. Again, I think you should switch this to N, honestly. N is pretty good in here. 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher. Choose 1, put a Pokemon from your pile into your hand, shuffle 3 from your Pokemon from your pile into your deck. A lot of times you're going to be shuffling 3 unless you're just getting back like Unknown Missing. Because you can get back these Pokemon anyway with the Zoroark line. So a lot of times you're just going to be shuffling 3 Zoroark pieces and Bunnelby back into the deck, and then drawing back into them with Make Do. Again, because you're going to have a pretty low deck size at any given point in time, you can just afford to, you know, draw into them again if you shuffle them back in and you just have like no cards in deck. One thing I will say with this deck, like I said, is you could play Egg. That way you always have Fuel for Make Do. I haven't run into the problem, but I also haven't had too many drawn-out games with this deck. The games generally go pretty quickly. Usually you just win over your opponent because they just never attack, or that or you get bowled completely. The latter is more likely. 3 copies of Versus Seeker. Put a Sporter card from your pile into your hand. Use this to get back all your Sporters. It's floatifiable, so that's pretty good. That's why you play it over like the Loose Mean engine. 1 copy of U-Turn Board. Treat cost of this Pokemon is 1 colorless less. If it's discarded from play, put it into your hand. So I use this because you're going to bring up a lot of attackers. You want to kind of just set up a pivot on a Cinccino mainly. And then just, you can use Guzma if you really need to pivot any more than that. You could play Floatstone, but I just don't want to have to use my Floatifies on Floatstone. And this retreats everything in the deck besides Dottler and Suicune. Obviously the Suicune start can be pretty painful. Oh yeah, it also doesn't retreat Slowking, but you want Slowking active anyway. You can't retreat Zoroark technically, but you're going to be moving Zoroark into something you could retreat regardless, so U-Turn Board's good. I like it. I think it's underrated in a lot of control decks. They just play Floatstone because everyone plays Floatstone. U-Turn Board's pretty good though. It also leaves you away from being screwed over by Field Blower. 1 copy of Chaotic Swell. It just kind of keeps your opponent's stadiums out of play. You don't really have any stadiums your own that you really love. Maybe like a training court at most. But you don't want to give your opponent the training court, obviously. So you play Chaotic Swell because it keeps your opponent's stadiums out of play, so they can't play things that would screw you over. But you also, you know, don't really need a stadium of your own. 1 copy of Life Dew. This is probably the 3rd most important card in the deck. If the Pokemon this card is attached to gets knocked out, your opponent takes 1 for your prize. Use this in combination with Floatify and Bunnelby's Rototiller to just recycle this so that all the attackers you're bringing up, like Slowking and Persian and Girafarig, are just not giving up prizes, and you're just taking your opponent's resources away from them. 1 copy of Recycle Energy. Use this so you can use your Get Lost at any point in the game. It also works with Burrow on Bunnelby, though do be careful not to get it stuck there. Although U-Turn Board plus Recycle means retreat with Bunnelby, so keep that in mind. Again, Scoop Up Net could be good here. If I were going to cut anything for the Scoop Up Net, it'd probably be Battle Compressor. So there's just my tidbit there. This list isn't 100% perfect. 3 copies of Water. Use this to pay for your Floatify and your Memory Melt. You could potentially pay something to get water back other than Clara, but Clara tends to make sure you always have your water energy, so Clara's good enough. That's the list here. Your goal is, again, to win with missing. It's basically impossible to win against about 90% of expanded decks. I'm just going to be real with you. This deck is god-awful. Don't play it if you want to win games. Play it if you want to get the funny victory home screen, or victory screen with the unknowns on it. Yeah, that's about all I had to say about this deck today. Thank you all for watching and keeping up with my slower schedule lately, and I'll see you in the next deck list or tabletop gameplay.